President of the United States will be delivering a speech very shortly in Arizona. If you want to watch the full speech as he makes it in just a few moments, it will be available on Real America's Voice social media pages, including the Twitter, the Periscope, and beyond. Meanwhile, we'll be sticking here with regularly or semi-regularly scheduled programming because there's just so much breaking news out there. I know the president's giving 3-4 speeches every single day at the moment. And we'll be joined by one of his critical advisors, senior advisor Steve Cortez will be joining us on the line in just a moment. There's some big breaking news as we get it. Although I don't know if it's that big breaking news. CNN's Jeffrey Toobin apparently suspended from the New Yorker magazine where he collects his primary paycheck after apparently exposing himself on a Zoom colleague call. That's breaking in the last few minutes here. I just thought we'd really, open the show with that, start it off with a bang while we wait to connect with Steve Cortez. I believe we have Steve Cortez joining us on the line now, Trump campaign senior advisor. Steve, are you with us?
Yes, I certainly am here, and I promise I am not going to pull a Toobin during this appearance.
Why not? That's a shame. But I like the fact that it was as it was reported by Vice. By the way, it's a New Yorker suspends Jeffrey Toobin for Zoom bad word incident. I like that you need to zoom on that end of the line for Jeffrey Toobin.
I would assume that this was just an awkward, embarrassing mess up. But what isn't a mess up is Jeffrey Toobin's terrible legal analysis. He claims to be a, quote, legal analyst rather than an opinion commentator on CNN. And there's far too much of that in media today, of course. Look, I have an opinion. I am trying to persuade people of a point of view, of an America First point of view, but I am transparent about that. People like Jeffrey Toobin forget about what he did or didn't do in a Zoom call. People like Jeffrey Toobin go on the air, take to the CNN airwaves as a supposed expert in law, when in fact, he's every bit as partisan as Steve Cortez is.
Steve, are you saying that Toobin had his tube out?
No comment from the Trump campaign.
Comment from here. All right, Steve, very serious things to talk about, but I thought we'd open the show on a jovial note. Not so jovial for the people who had to watch it, I'm sure. But there was big breaking news this morning from one of your colleagues who tweeted it out. Jason Miller tweeted, and I know was on with Maria Bartiromo this morning. I spotted this as soon as Jason tweeted it, that the Presidential Debate Commission has once again attempted to change the rules, ditching the foreign policy focus of Thursday night's debate, Steve.
Listen, the debate commission has shown itself time and again to be a complicit swamp cabal. And I don't think I'm exaggerating to say that. It is by no means bipartisan. Yes, there are some people on the commission who put an R next to their name because they are establishment pre-2016 Republicans, but all of them have a record. It's not my opinion. They have a public record of making terrible statements, disparaging statements about the president and about our movement. So we effectively had no representation on that commission. And the reality is the commission time and again has put its thumb on the scale. It did so in its choice of moderators, a wholly biased slate of moderators, and not just biased, but in the case of Steve Scully, totally dishonest. It also did so by changing the second debate from in-person to virtual without consultation with us. And by the way, just hours after Vice President Pence just staged a command virtuoso performance in the vice presidential debate. The debate commission, there are no coincidences in this town. The debate commission wanted to change the news cycle conversation with a unilateral 7:30 a.m. announcement that the debate couldn't happen in person, when in fact both candidates ended up having in-person town halls, which just proves the point that they should have and could have been together. And now here again, I worry about what the commission is going to try to do. There's talk that there might be, quote, rule changes. Of course, the Trump campaign will have to take a very close look at that. And to your point about changing the topic, this was the entire focus of this. It was originally third debate. The entire focus was supposed to be on foreign policy. The president has an amazing record to speak of here, a record of America first realism and restraint, and still massive diplomatic breakthroughs, such as bringing Arabs and Israelis together for the first time in 25 years in the Middle East. In addition, of course, the topic of foreign policy naturally brings to light the incredible record of corruption that is now being revealed to the entire world of the Hunter Biden, and I should say it's much bigger than Hunter, so I don't want to focus too much on him, on the Biden Inc., the Biden crime family situation. What we have here, what is known so far, is that the Biden crime family was paid by the two most dangerous adversaries of the United States in the entire world, Russia and China, the two countries on earth that, as we speak, have ICBMs targeted for American cities. Those regimes were funneling millions of dollars to the Biden family. And what is known for certain is that Joe Biden was fully aware of his son's nefarious and shady business practices all over the world. And further, what has not been yet completely established, but according to Hunter Biden, his father was not only aware of these arrangements, but he was actually participating in them as well as a financial beneficiary of payments from the Chinese Communist Party. These are questions that need to be answered. They will be pressed clearly by President Trump on Thursday, because corporate media, we can't count on them to do their job, and we can't count on Joe Biden to face the music because he's been in sequester and will be apparently all week. But these are critical questions for the American people.
Yeah, Joe Biden's in hiding for all of this week as he does debate prep for 4 straight days. Seems utterly bizarre. Steve, I know we only got you for a second, so as much as I hate to let you go, we really thank you for your time here this afternoon with us on the National Pulse. I just want to ask you this one question, or rather give you this idea, right? Can the president wear like a Where's Hunter lapel pin or something like that, just to show that the debate moderator will not ask the question, but that he's going to raise it?
That's a great point. Or maybe a MAGA hat, the red hat, but instead of MAGA, it will say, Where's Hunter? Something subtle.
Exactly. Steve, we've got to go to a break. Thank you so much for your time. We'll speak to you anon. We'll be right back after this short break. Well, CNN's Jeffrey... I'm just enjoying this too much. CNN's Jeffrey Toobin, who had his tube out on a Zoom call with colleagues. And by the way, I totally stole that from the National Pulse live chat on YouTube. Wasn't my joke. So whoever made that, and I just glanced down at my computer. Thank you. I own it now. He's issued a statement about his apparently exposing himself on the Zoom call with colleagues. He's been suspended. If you missed the breaking news, he's been suspended from his job at the New Yorker. No comment from CNN yet. I guess maybe they're waiting to see how big a blunder it was. Toobin said in a statement to Vice, I made an embarrassingly stupid mistake believing I was off camera. I apologized to my wife, family, friends, and co-workers. I believed I was not visible on Zoom. I thought nobody on the Zoom call could see me. I thought I had muted the Zoom video. New Yorker spokesman Natalie Rabe said Jeffrey Toobin has been suspended while we investigate the matter. So that's the breaking news in this hour. And I want to thank Steve Cortez again for coming on at the top of the show to talk us through this latest change, the latest fix, the latest attempt to rig the debate on Thursday night. And if you're wondering to yourself, where you're going to watch the debate on Thursday night, look no further than right here on Real America's Voice. We'll be hosting live debate coverage with the pre-game and the post-game analysis. I hope they let me do it again, because I've still got some Johnny Black in the fridge waiting to be polished off from the last time. We love the debate nights here, and we love you joining us for them. So make sure you stick with us 9 p.m. Thursday night. And it'll be an interesting one because, of course, the Election Debate Commission, the Presidential Commission for the Debates, is basically a bunch of lefties and a bunch of never-Trumpers. The never-Trumpers claiming to be Republicans but haven't shown signs in decades of any strand of conservative thought. They tried to change the rules again by changing the debate topic. Now, the way this works, no matter what Frank Fahrenkopf goes on CNN or MSNBC and says, is that there is toing and froing between the campaign and the debate commission. And typically you have a third debate focused on foreign policy. Now, you might argue that this is not the third debate because we missed the second debate. So technically this is the second debate. But then you go and look, and we've all the breaking news story up about it on thenationalpulse.com if you've missed this, with all the detail in it. But if you look at what the debate topics are for this second debate, they're basically the same as the first debate, which makes no sense. You're supposed to cover a broad spectrum of issues. So in the first debate, we heard about fighting COVID-19 and race in America and the two leaders and their leadership records. Well, this debate is supposed to feature fighting COVID-19 and race in America and leadership. Hang on. This is supposed to be, and if you think back through the last 6, 7 different presidential cycles that we've had here, this is supposed to be your foreign policy heavy debate. Now, they do say a question of national security will come up, but is it any coincidence that when these Hunter Biden emails leak, when this Hunter Biden laptop is recovered, and when the president and the former vice president of the United States' foreign policy credentials are called into question as a result of what dodgy deals he was part of? Remember, he's the big man, the big guy. What dodgy deals he was a part of as a result of Hunter Biden's foreign activity, suddenly Kristen Welker and the Debate Commission want to pivot right back to the same topics as the first debate. Well, I've no doubt, as Jason Miller said on Maria Bartiromo this morning, that the President of the United States, Donald Trump, will himself have to raise these issues during that debate. But will he be allowed the time? Will he be given the time? Will he be given the microphone to do that? Because remember, the Debate Commission also said after the first debate that they might be changing the way this whole thing works. Does that include a kill switch? Does that include a mute button? Does that include the ability to turn off the microphones of either of the candidates, by which we mean one of the candidates, if the moderator doesn't like what they're saying or judges that they're going off topic? Probably. And we're going to be hearing about more details as the days go on. But between now and Thursday, I'm sure more details will be coming out. Brian Stelter, Jeffrey Toobin's colleague at CNN, was teasing this weekend. He said, hey, we were going to hear about all these new debate rules. We haven't heard any. Brian Stelter knows exactly what they're going to do because they briefed to Brian Stelter and CNN at the beginning of all of this. He knows exactly what they're going to do. So we may even have some breaking news in the next couple of hours on this. It may come tomorrow. It may come the day after. But just think to yourself for a moment. Kristen Welker, she's the one that ostensibly gets to choose the debate topics. Kristen Welker, who took her father to the Obama-Biden White House for a Christmas party. Kristen Welker, whose mother has posted anti-Trump stuff on social media. And Kristen Welker, whose family has given thousands of dollars to Democrats, including to Joe Biden. So that's who we're being asked to believe will be a fair and balanced moderator in Thursday night's debate. Now, I don't even think that the president needs a moderator on his side like Joe Biden does. I don't even think they need a moderator at all. I'd have somebody go in there, ring a bell, say, have at it, walk off, and let these two men fight it out. Fight it out. Fight it out for time, fight it out for the microphone, fight it out over the issues. Let it go wherever it needs to go. But no, You see, the establishment cannot risk that. The establishment cannot put its man, Joe Biden, in the crosshairs of the beast, basically, that is President Trump, right? He's a bulldozer. He would chew Joe Biden up and spit him out if there were no rules in that Thursday night debate. And it's all going to be focused. All of that energy, all of that passion has to be focused on the swamp and how Joe Biden represents that swamp and how Hunter Biden was the bag man that, in his own words, his dad put a target on his back. Hunter Biden said that of his father, Joe Biden. Said, my dad put a bullseye on my back. Is that the kind of man you want as president of the United States? In the next segment, we're talking to Ellen Swenson from the Election Integrity Project. She's the chief analyst over there. That's not the Transition Integrity Project, by the way. The Election Integrity Project's the good guys. Transition Integrity Project's the bad guys, who, by the way, kind of disappeared, didn't they? More on that when we come back after this break. Welcome back to the National Pulse. Natalie Winters will join us shortly to talk about the latest breaking scoops at the National Pulse as they pertain to Joe and Hunter Biden and more members of the Biden crime syndicate, the Biden crime family, some call it. I just think syndicate sounds so much more what it is, sinister. And it's broader because it's not just the Biden family that are getting rich, it's their accomplices along the way as well. But first I want to take you, or I'll let my guest take you, to California. Ellen Swenson is the chief analyst for the Election Integrity Project. These are the good guys who are trying to ensure ballot integrity across the country. Big job you've got ahead of yourselves here, Ellen. I don't know that you guys even foresaw this a couple of years ago as being something that I guess 2020 caught us all by surprise as being something that could happen on this grander scale this quickly. But tell us a little bit about what you guys are focusing on now at the Election Integrity Project.
Okay, well, for the last 10 years, we've been purchasing the voter lists in California and analyzing them using very strict and conservative methods, and reporting back to the election officials what we believe were invalid registrations. And the typical response was nothing, crickets. So we finally sued them in 2018, and we prevailed with a decent settlement in that lawsuit. But the problems in the voter list continue. So this year, with the fear that we might go 100% vote by mail in California, we sent a series of reports and actually legal notices to the Secretary of State saying you have, for example, 450,000 people who have not voted or updated their registrations in 12 or more years, and that those people all are active status for some reason, and those people will be mailed a ballot if you do mail ballots. Well, we were essentially told to pound sand. We also sent in thousands of deceased people, et cetera, and duplicate get 2 ballots, told to pound sand. So we continue to do our work, and we purchased the data in August, mid-August, a brand new data set. And for your viewers, they should know that August 5th, the database closed. It basically froze the database, which is 90 days before a federal election. They can add registered voters to that list. They can do some changes, but essentially it's frozen in time now. They can't remove anybody. So our August 18th data represents what would be going out in terms of ballots. So we noticed that they did remove about 50,000 of the anomalies that we reported earlier in the year, but about 440,000 still remain. So we just put out a press release today saying that we believe 440,000 people at least were mailed a ballot when they really should not have been. They either moved, they died, or they got more than one ballot.
Ellen, I mean, what are the implications for this now? Because they're not just what you guys are doing in California, but I have a Google Docs in front of me somewhere. Bear with me while I load it up here. But it's just dozens upon dozens of incidents all around the country now that sound either extremely similar or in some cases maybe even worse than what we're seeing in California. So what are the implications? What does a group like yours do when you know you're going to be facing dozens upon dozens, if not hundreds upon hundreds of legal challenges all across the country as a result of this stuff?
What we're trying to do in this instance, because we're only 2 weeks from the election and a lot of these ballots have been counted, is we're putting the alert out to the press, and we're also encouraging candidates and the political parties on both sides to acquire the file that we sent to the Secretary of State, and then they can work with their local election officials to make sure that any of those anomalies, if they investigate and believe that we're correct, which we believe we are, if any of those people sent ballots in, then that can be resolved, not counted or resolved in some way. So if you have a very close race and you have, for example, Congressional District 21 here in California, that was decided by 862 votes in 2018. And they have currently 12,000 what we're calling questionable ballots that were mailed out. So if they, again, have that tight of a race in Congressional District 21, then they can look at those questionable ballots, those lists, and see if any of those people voted and use that in their challenges. And we're careful because we're nonpartisan, so we're sending the information to the candidates on both sides of all these races.
Yeah, and that's in that sort of circumstance, that's the right thing to do. I want to get your thoughts on something not unrelated, but kind of, it's a weird thing, and people have been asking me about it. I sent a tweet out last night, and it got nearly 4,000 retweets, I guess, about regret or pre-gret. Voting that's taking place pre-election day, but news can change people's minds, circumstances can change people's minds, policy can change from the campaigns in this period of time, and people may think, hey, I actually don't want to vote for Joe Biden anymore. I cast my ballot 2 weeks ago, but I don't like him. I don't like the Hunter Biden emails, or some policies changed, or he's been murky about something. What can those people do in that circumstance?
If they voted in person already and they voted early, then there's nothing you can do because you can't go retrieve that ballot back out of the box. If they voted by mail, it's possible, although I've never seen this happen before, but it's possible they could go down to their local election office, have them retrieve it, and then re-vote. But I've never seen that done. And in fact, in California, in March, we had kind of a similar situation where it was a March primary, and people had cast their ballots, and then one by one, different candidates started dropping out. So people voted, for example, Beto O'Rourke or somebody, and then he was dropped out. So there was no cure in that example. So I've never seen it done.
It's just very strange when you have a situation where so many people are being asked to vote early, and so much can change. You've got the debates on kind of the wrong side of when voting started, and I know that other people vote in advance before, but not at this scale, and they've never been kind of traumatized and frightened into doing it on this scale. Ellen, stick around. I want to get to more of this with you in the next segment here. We're up against a break, but really happy to have the Election Integrity Project and Ellen Swenson looking out for these details, because there's so much of it here. I mean, I'm looking at a spreadsheet in front of me from California, Texas, Virginia, New Jersey, Ohio, Washington, D.C., New York, Washington State. There's so much of this going on out there, and very few people putting together a running tally of it. That's why we're going to be working on something at the National Pulse that you guys can use as a central repository to find out what's going on out there. We'll be back with Ellen Swenson after this short break. Welcome back to the National Pulse. In the break, I'm waiting for updates on this Jeffrey Toobin story. I just keep refreshing Vice's page to see if there are any more details that I need to report to you, because I'm sure you're all supremely interested in what Jeffrey Toobin's been doing on Zoom calls with colleagues. we've got a whole lot to go through on the rest of this show today, including and not limited to hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of Biden campaign cash that ended up a lobbying firm and a law firm. Guess where it ended up? Guess. In Hunter Biden's pockets, of course. We'll be walking you through that with Natalie Winters in just a moment. I want to take it back to Ellen Swenson, the chief analyst at the Election Integrity Project. These are the good guys who are looking out for ballot integrity around the country, quite the opposite of the Transition Integrity Project, who were the guys and girls who were trying to kind of foment a civil unrest, street fights as a result of not having their candidate win in November or December or January, whenever they decided the new election deadline was. What's weird is the Transition Integrity Project just kind of disappeared. You know, Rosa Brooks was emailing with me and we were all chummy. I was going to get her on the show. You know, we're going to have a nice, kind, polite chat about what her organization was doing. And then suddenly, after Niels Gilman, the other TIP founder, after Niels Gilman threatened Michael Anton with, you know, being up against the firing squad, suddenly they pulled down their website and they didn't want to exist anymore. Interesting, that, isn't it? It's like shining a light on cockroaches. Ellen, I got 3 ballots. I'm not a US citizen. I got 3 ballots delivered to my house in Washington, D.C. And I know that there are other people who have gone through this as well. And I know that Rick Grinnell's been highlighting some of the ballots being mailed out to people he knows as well. I have a question here. Please talk me down from the ledge. When I just look at these elections coming up in the US, and the 2 words that just keep going around my head is just banana and republic, over and over again. This is not the way a modern Western nation conducts elections.
Well, we're seeing all over social media these thousands of people receiving ballots all across the country for people who either have died or don't live there anymore, or people are getting multiple ballots. And you mentioned Rick Grinnell. In fact, he tweeted out 2 ballots that came to a friend of his parents who are now deceased, and his friend allowed him to publish those on Twitter. Well, the Twitter gods suspended his account, and he refuses to remove it. And then we at Election Integrity Project tweeted to Rick that we actually had reported those 2 very individuals who were deceased to the Secretary of State on April 28th of 2020. And on May 18th, they got back to us in writing and said they refused to investigate. So then, of course, they Twitter.
Wait, hold on, Ellen, stop. I want to understand this. You let them know in advance, who are supposed to know in advance, that those people should not be on the voter roll anymore, and they refused to investigate, kept them on the voter roll, and mailed them out ballots?
Yes. They were part of this group, what we call no-shows. People, they died out of state, so we only can track people who die in California, but we have them on a different list, not of dead, but of people we call no-shows, who haven't voted or updated in 12 or more years. And those 2, that couple, sadly, they're deceased, but they're on that list. So they were part of this list we had sent in April 28th to the Secretary. May 19th, they got back to us in writing and said, we cannot and will not, and we are not required by law to look at people who haven't voted in 12 years. So there's really no trigger all we ask them is please send them all a card and then see if maybe their name has changed or maybe they've moved, or just validate. And you don't have to cancel them all. We just want to see if some probably should be canceled. Well, they ended up canceling about 40,000 of those in the end, even though they said we were not correct. And in total, including deceased and duplicates, they canceled 51,000 since we reported, but there's still 440,000 on there that we're reporting today that were sent ballots, and we believe they shouldn't have. We're calling them questionable ballots. So they did. Twitter came down on us for election misinformation.
When you're the ones who are actually securing the election far better than the people who are supposed to be doing it. Makes perfect sense.
And that's
Ellen,
why we're encouraging candidates to get the file so they can see, exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah. A lot of people will look at this and go, oh, well, it's California. What difference is But it does make a difference in individual race levels, doesn't it? It does make a difference, especially, you might not be choosing a president out from California. That's not a swing state as far as the presidential election is concerned. But it does matter for congressional elections across California. There are still some Republican-held districts across California. There are still competitive districts in California, and that impacts the House. That impacts, and the House has the power, let's say, I don't know, maybe somebody's going to launch a new impeachment trial in a couple of months' time, and all of these things impact each other, right?
Right. Well, our goal is to make sure the election is fair for no matter who you're voting for, no matter what party, because we're a nonpartisan organization. But I will say there are several swing congressional districts in California. One, which is Congressional District 21, which is in the Central Valley. And that was decided in 2018 by 862 votes. Those same candidates are up at it again. And right now, according to our estimates and our data analysis, there are about 12,000 questionable ballots in that congressional district alone. So when the margin was 860 and you have 12,000 possible bad ballots that could be misvoted, then that's when it really matters.
Extraordinary. Ellen, where can people keep up with your guys' work? Is your Twitter unlocked now? Where can they follow you? And can you take donations? I know this audience likes to help causes they believe in.
We're all volunteer, and we rely on donations to keep going. We are at it's Election Integrity Project California, and it's EIPCA for California EIP-CA.com. And on there's a donation page. And there's also, you can go on and find a place you can report if you get a bad ballot. You can send that information to us.
Oh, well, I will be doing that, and we'll make sure that we communicate the URL with all of our audience. EIP-CA.com. Make sure to go and support their work. Ellen, thanks once again for your time and extremely informative segments here.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Wow, just extraordinary details, and we're going to be hearing so much more of this as the election drags on and on and on, past November, into December, I'm certain, into the courts in January. And you heard it here first from Ellen Swenson and the National Pulse. We'll be right back after this short break. Get off me, Jeffrey. Oh, this is Jeffrey Toobin over there, doing more naughty things on camera. Jeffrey Toobin, CNN's Jeffrey Toobin, has not... there's no development to this story, and it's very upsetting to me. If you missed the beginning of the show, Jeffrey Toobin, had his tube out, apparently, on a Zoom call with colleagues. He's been suspended from the New Yorker. No word from CNN yet. That's what I'm waiting for. I'm waiting for CNN to issue a statement on whether or not Jeffrey Toobin will continue to be allowed on air. Now, I do believe that he has said he needs time off to deal with a personal issue. I'm sure he does. But will CNN continue to allow this sicko on air? We'll bring you the latest as we get it here. In the meantime, Natalie, you've developed a nickname in the live chat. Your name is Scoops. Okay.
Well, I was going to say, I wonder what we'll hear first, from the Biden campaign on Hunter Biden's emails, or from CNN on Jeffrey Toobin exposing himself.
Or merge those two worlds, and we'll hear from Hunter Biden on Jeffrey Toobin exposing himself. Actually, we should be hearing, but here's the thing, we should be hearing, you've stumbled upon something here, we should be hearing from Jeffrey Toobin on Hunter Biden, but CNN won't cover the story. In fact, I think CNN dedicated a whole 0 minutes and 0 seconds to the story this weekend, instead choosing to focus on, Russian disinformation. Look, the director of the National Intelligence Directorate this morning came out and said this is not Russian disinformation, right? It's effectively already been investigated. All these investigations that Adam Schiff is calling for and everyone else, it's already been investigated, and the DNI is saying this is legitimate information. And just so that people understand, there's the original laptop, which is the story that broke last week, but there's also now these 26,000 odd emails from a former Hunter Biden partner that he's turned over to investigative journalists who are going through that right now. And I know you've spoken to some of them. I've spoken to some of them as well. We had Jack Posobiec on the show this morning, who's been going through some of them also. There's a lot of bad stuff in here. And for the audience that's out there and frustrated, now, why don't you just release all of it? Well, there are several reasons for that. Number one, that's just not how the news works. It takes time to write the stories and investigate and make sure the I's are crossed and the T's are dotted and etc. But also, nobody's trying to dox anyone here, right? If you just release the whole copies of the hard drive, or you give access to everybody for the emails, private bank account numbers could come out, and social security numbers, and home addresses, and all of that stuff. And it needs to be filtered out, right? So you will learn over the course of the next couple of days, these things that are legitimate to be reported on. And there are just so many of them. So don't worry, you'll be getting plenty of scoops. But Natalie, you actually have one for us today that wasn't reliant on either of these two, but just good old-fashioned investigating. Tell us a little bit more. Well,
just on the emails, this just came to me, but I think it's interesting the line of attack that you see the Biden campaign, the mainstream media, the Democrats using against these emails. It's very similar to how I think they attack conservatives. And what I mean by that is that rather than attacking the substance behind the emails or the substance of one's argument, they kind of go for the ad hominem attacks, right? They say, you're a racist, you're a white supremacist, that's why we can't have a discussion. Now they're doing the same thing with these emails. Now they're saying, it's Russian disinformation, we won't allow it. You're seeing the big tech platforms do it, you're seeing the mainstream media outlets do it, and you're even seeing the Biden campaign do it. So I think it's kind of an interesting similarity on that front. But referencing the story that you just kind of teased, I went through FEC filings for a host of Biden-linked and in most cases Biden-led PACs, which is short for Political Action Committee, as well as leadership funds. So again, that's directed by then Senator Biden, and over $70,000, nearly $75,000 has been funneled from those PACs to a Hunter Biden founded and led law firm. And this money, which is no small amount, came from donations from voters who supported the Biden campaign. As President Trump likes to say, the Bidens robbed America. They got rich while doing so, and this is just the latest example. But Hunter Biden is really he's the norm, not the exception, in the sense that multiple Biden family members have profited from these campaign, let's call them what they are, slush funds. Nearly $150,000 has gone to members of the Biden family for consulting, for legal fees, specifically the firm Oldacre, Biden and Belair, which has a cushy office about a block away from the White House. They received over $70,000 over the course of just 3 years from Unite Our States, which was a leadership PAC led by Biden, an additional around $20,000 coming from Citizens for Biden, and that was when he was running for the Senate, how people could donate to the campaign.
I've seen some people, by the way, saying on Twitter today, after we published this scoop, $70,000 isn't a lot of money. Firstly, that's $70,000 in 2005 money, so it's more like $91,000 today, $150,000 to the rest of the family. But these are just actually the tip of the iceberg on all of this. We were going through some of this stuff earlier today, and the extraordinary amount of money that this law firm seems to have made off not just Joe Biden's political action committees, but also organizations, colleges, for instance, that have worked in tandem with Joe Biden, that have Joe Biden institutes housed there. There's a lot more of this to come out, but it also raises the question, again, we're 13 days and a wake-up away from Election Day, is why hadn't people heard about this before? Because a lot of people have already cast their ballots.
Well, and it's also interesting because Hunter Biden
Not criticizing you.
No. Well, someone has to report on it. There's many follow-up stories to be gained from these emails and what's been uncovered. I have to say I'm not surprised at all to know that they were referencing their business as China Inc. But it really is a Biden crime syndicate in the sense that it's not just Hunter Biden. You see his nieces and nephews, even his wife benefited from some of these campaign funds. And I'm sure when we return from the break, we'll talk about another story that we have forthcoming about his niece who turned her position in the Obama administration into a very lucrative, nearly $20 million lobbying gig for Coca-Cola, a company which Joe Biden publicly praised quite frequently.
That's Natalie Winters there, monitoring the breaks more closely than I am. I want to make sure that everybody is tuned in here on Real America's Voice. Got some great programming lined up for you. The rest of the day, obviously, the president will be speaking. More speeches, the frequency of those ratcheting up and up. And in the break, head on over to thenationalpulse.com. You can go to thenationalpulse.com/support. If you want more scoops, thenationalpulse.com/donate. We'll be right back. Well, Zoom, and then a word I can't say on air, the male part, is trending on Twitter right now. It reminded me of that old Seinfeld episode when Elaine goes to Jerry. So I had an interesting time on a date. Oh yeah, what happened? He took it out. He took what out? It out. Jeffrey Toobin took it out, and we're yet to hear from CNN as to whether or not he's out at the network as a result of his lewd behavior. Really odd about this story, by the way, is that he said he thought he was muted, his video was muted on a Zoom call. That doesn't make sense. You either turn it off or you have it on. There's no muting. And even if you're muted on a Zoom call, why are you... Never mind. Anyway. He's just made a great news cycle even better. Now, the thing that's the biggest thing in the news cycle right now, and it's definitely not too about, is the Hunter laptop and the emails and all of this. And there will be stories that come out, and we're going to be breaking some big news on the War Room tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. as well. I will be. You don't need to worry about it. You can lay in as you usually do. I want to understand where else this story might go, because Joe Biden has actually joked himself about his own family members raking in cash as a result of their position, right?
Yeah, you can follow the money, and there's a lot of money to follow. Really, $20 million, that's at least all the lobbying registrations that Joe Biden's niece, Missy Owens, is registered under, specifically for the company, you may have heard of it, Coca-Cola. But after working in
different Coke than Hunter's used to.
Yes, right. Yes, definitely.
Right. Different Coke.
But she was in the Obama White House. She was the Deputy Chief of Staff at the Department of Energy from 2009 to 2011. Later got promoted to be the actual Chief of Staff to the then Deputy Secretary at the Department of Commerce from 2011 to 2012. I wonder how she got those positions. But directly after that, she joined Coca-Cola as Director of Public Affairs and Diplomatic Relations. She held that position for 4 years before getting promoted to Director of for Federal and Government Relations for Federal and Diplomatic Matters, very specific position.
What is that as a job title?
Her LinkedIn is very specific, but what that effectively means is that she was lobbying her uncle and President Obama and individuals who she had presumably worked alongside, if not with, to take the Coca-Cola line on a host of issues. In the lobbying, at the actual filings, you can see that she lobbied a host of federal agencies, all the way down from the State Department, the Department of Agriculture, Department of Health and Human Services, the actual White House office, as well as Congress and Senate. But what's really interesting about this story, while it's egregious in its own right, and again, don't confuse her with the other Biden niece who worked on the strategic economic dialogues with China. She held that position from, I believe, 2009 to 2011. After exiting the Gates Foundation at age 26, she was included on a host of high-level dialogues and secret private meetings with high-level Chinese diplomats. Perhaps that casts an interesting and curious light over Hunter Biden's Chinese business dealings. But what's interesting is that in a 2014 speech from Joe Biden, where he was talking about the 100K strong initiative, don't confuse that with the 100,000 strong initiative, because that's linked to Confucius Institutes. But you hear Joe Biden actually joking about the influence that his niece, Missy Owens, had not only over Coca-Cola, but again, he goes on to praise the company. They were also invited to participate in this, what Joe Biden described as a very lucrative and market expanding venture where they could kind of get boots on the ground in a host of Latin American countries. And again, Joe Biden has a deep relationship with Coca-Cola. I believe his wife has spoken at their events, so definitely, muddled waters in terms of the relationship there. Main Street and Scranton Joe, small business Joe is not the case here when you see virtually all of his family members not only grifting off of his last name, but really just being what I think most Americans hate, and that's the lobbyists to undermine democracy and want to get, Coca-Cola's interests above those of the American workers.
And make way too much money off doing it.
Way too much money.
Way too money. All right, Natalie, that story's going to come up tomorrow, I think, on the National Pulse website. We got the clip of Joe Biden making that joke about all the access that his niece has. And somebody mentioned in the live chat, in fact, two comments I want to pull out from the live chat right now that tickled me. They said, actually, it's now getting easier to remember people who aren't involved at this rate. It's just everybody in the Biden syndicate, in the Biden crime family. And then secondly, Chris says we're going to need a bigger drain to drain that swamp. I think it's absolutely correct. I also just wanted to touch on this very, very briefly. It's something that we had it up in our breaking section over the weekend, but it's the Chinese State Media Bureau chief calling for more bomb-throwing protests in the U.S.
This is the same guy who said that the way that the Chinese Communist Party handled Tiananmen Square was too lenient. He's the same individual who confirmed that the Chinese Communist Party indeed wants a Biden victory. The man in question is Chen Weihua of China Daily, the European bureau chief. He used to be a D.C. bureau chief, but I guess he either got promoted or demoted. It depends how you look at it. But he is an ardent critic of President Trump.
Hold on, he went from D.C. to Brussels?
D.C. to Brussels.
That's a demotion.
That's a demotion? Yeah. Well, interesting. He loves China so much, doesn't seem to live there. But anyways, he endorsed that we should have more petrol bomb throwing protests in the United States, which is a line that the Chinese Communist Party and their henchmen have really been peddling in Chinese state media and even American media when the New York Times will publish their op-eds that there's some equivalency between what's going on in Hong Kong and what's going on here with Black Lives Matter rioters and Antifa.
Yeah, don't worry, ladies and gentlemen. Lots more CCP scoops to come as well. And I just want to say a great big thank you to everybody who's been joining us, sharing the live stream, hitting up the Real America's Voice app. You can get it on Pluto, you can get it on Roku. Tomorrow we're going to have Governor Eric Greitens with us here in studio. He's launching a new show here on Real America's Voice. We'll get him on to talk to you about it, what it's going to be about and why. We should all be listening to Actionable Intelligence by and with Governor Eric Greitens. So you've got that to look forward to tomorrow. What else do we have tomorrow?
Potentially Congressman Gosar.
Potentially Congressman Gosar. Go tweet at Congressman Gosar. Tell him that he needs to come on tomorrow. No, he's great. He's always a fan and a friend of this show, and we look forward to having him whenever he can make it. Hope it can be tomorrow. In the meantime, stick around here on Real America's Voice. More to come, and more of the president live at the rallies. We'll see you tomorrow at 10 a.m. for the War Room.